Welcome to Simcha, a celebration of life. I'm your host, Eitan Berger. It is an ancient Jewish custom to eat oily foods on Chanukah, since it is a holiday that commemorates a miracle that occurred with oil. The jug of oil in the temple, which naturally should have lasted only one night, lasted 8. Today, Rebbetzin Debbie Suiza shows us how to make these delicious fried doughnuts called bumwellos.
Hi, today we are going to be making doughnuts. But these are doughnuts with a difference. These are Sefardi doughnuts, and they are called bumwellos. We eat them on Chanukah, which symbolizes the miracle of the oil that took place on this festival. So, the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to take 1 cup of warm water. To this, we are going to add a teaspoon of sugar, a pinch of salt, and 10 grams of dry yeast. We will then mix this together until all the yeast is dissolved in the water. We then leave this for 10 minutes until it starts to froth and the yeast starts fermenting. The story of Chanukah is drenched in oil. The menorah, the candelabra that stood in the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, was lit from pure olive oil. Only enough olive oil was left for one night. And when the Kohanim went to go and light the menorah, a miracle occurred, and that oil lasted for 8 nights. It is for this reason that every single year we light 8 candles, celebrating and commemorating the 8 nights that the candelabra was lit and lasted for. And this is why we eat foods that are in actual fact drenched in oil. Once the yeast is frothy, we then add the remaining ingredients. We take 3 cups of flour and add it to the yeast mixture, plus the remaining cup of warm water. Now we tuck in and we mix all the dough together until we are left with a very soft and sticky dough. One of the best parts of this recipe is in actual fact putting your hands in and getting in touch with the ingredients. And it's amazing to see how these ingredients actually transform themselves and all come together. You're not going to get a dough that is bread-like in texture at all. So you don't have to worry about it being very, very sticky. Once the ingredients are all mixed together, we can then cover the bowl and leave it in a warm place for 20 minutes just so that it can rise a little bit.
Jews of Ashkenazi origin traditionally eat potato latkes to fulfill the custom of eating oily foods on Chanukah. However, Sephardic Jews eat deep-fried doughnuts. This custom has really caught on in Israel, where everyone now consumes loads of fried doughnuts or bumwellos on Chanukah.
While the dough is busy rising, you can now put the oil into a deep pot. You need a lot of oil so that you can deep fry the bumwellos. And you then wait for the oil to heat up. What's a very good idea to do is that once you think the oil is hot enough, is to just try it with a little bit of dough first in order to make sure that the oil is in actual fact hot enough. Once you've seen that the oil is hot enough for the dough and it starts to boil and bubble when you put the dough in, you can start putting tablespoons of the dough mixture into the oil. It's best to use a teaspoon as well, as the dough is very, very sticky. And then you just keep on putting in more tablespoons. You don't want too many blobs inside your oil at the same time, otherwise it won't boil quick enough. And you just allow it to boil until it becomes golden brown. You can move them around a little bit. Once you see that they start going golden brown underneath, then you can start moving them around so that all the sides actually get covered with the oil and become golden brown. Once they're golden brown on all sides, then you will know that they're actually cooked all the way through. So this one over here is very nearly at cooking time. You can see that they actually puff out like little puffer fish, and they start to expand on the inside, so it almost looks like they've got bubbles inside. Once the bumwellos are golden brown, looking like this, you can actually take them out of the oil with a slotted spoon and put them onto some absorbent paper. You will notice that they're all different sizes and shapes, so it should appeal to everybody. I haven't used all the dough mixture as it makes quite a lot of bumwellos, so if you don't want to make as many as there is dough, maybe you can halve the recipe. I'm just going to take some more roller towel and just dab and pat the bumwellos so that we get any excess oil off of it. You don't want to squash them, you just want to pat them very gently. It's time to make our syrup for the donuts. So you take half a cup of water, half a cup of sugar, and 3 tablespoons of honey. You mix all these together in a pot and simmer it on a low heat until it becomes sticky. This doesn't take very long as the sugar absorbs very, very quickly into the hot water. Just stir it around so that it all absorbs into the water. Once the syrup is boiled and is sticky, you can take the syrup from the pot and you can pour it into a jug. You can then put this aside to pour over your bumwellos once they've been made. Right, now it comes time to plate our bumwellos. It's really nice to put them on a very decorative plate, preferably a flat plate so that you can actually place them nicely. And now we take the syrup that we made earlier on and we pour it over the bumwellos. We then take some cinnamon and just sprinkle it all over. And we can sprinkle with nuts. Any kind of nuts will do, depends on your preference. It's preferable to eat the bumwellos after they've just been made, as if you leave them to cool down, then they go very, very hard and you don't get the same taste from them. I wish you a happy Chanukah.
Chanukah, the Jewish festival of rededication of the temple, also known as the Festival of Lights, is an 8-day festival beginning on the 25th of the Jewish month of Kislev. It marks the miraculous victory of the Jews, led by the Maccabees, against Greek persecution and religious oppression. Today, Simcha travels to New York, where we chat with Rabbi Jacobson about this Jewish festival.
As we celebrate the beautiful holiday of Chanukah, called the Festival of Lights, I want to focus on a few very powerful and, I believe, life-changing lessons that we can learn from this holiday. The holiday commemorates, and that's the word Chanukah, it means to dedicate. It commemorates the dedication of the temple, the rededication of the temple, approximately 2,500 years ago, after it was defiled and contaminated by the enemies of the Jewish people and the enemies of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. So Chanukah represented the victory of the few over the many, the weak over the strong, and it was symbolized by the fact that they found then a crucible, a flask of pure oil, which they could begin to reignite and relight, rekindle the menorah in the temple. And ever since, this became a holiday that we remember that victory, and we remember the celebration of light over darkness by lighting a menorah every evening on Chanukah for 8 straight nights. Each night we add one candle, one flame. That's the technical, traditional aspect of it. But when you think about it, you'll find tremendous lessons. Firstly, the question is this: why light? I mean, there are many ways to symbolize a victory. It's true they did light the menorah, but there were other things that were done in the temple. They brought offerings, they brought loaves, there was prayers said. There are many things in the temple. Why is this holiday so symbolized by light? For example, Purim is also a victory over our enemy, Haman, Achashverosh, the Persians, and yet we celebrate in a different fashion. And the answer is because the real challenge that the Jewish people faced in the time of the Greeks, during the time of Chanukah, was not a physical battle. The Greeks were not interested in killing Jews. They were not interested in killing. They were interested in assimilating them. And essentially, it was a battle of light, a spiritual battle. Do you stand up for your values, or do you assimilate and compromise those values? Purim, by contrast, was actually like a Holocaust. It was a call to destroy and extinguish every Jew. Chanukah was not the destruction of the bodies of Jews, it was the question of their souls. And a soul is interestingly compared to a flame. Nobody's ever seen a soul. Now, what does a soul look like? But in the book of Proverbs, King Solomon writes that Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. The soul of a person is the flame of God. So a flame is the closest approximation of what a soul looks like. So let's study a flame. As we light the Chanukah candles, one of the great Hasidic Rebbes, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, the 6th Chabad Rebbe, says that you have to listen to the story that the flames tell you. An interesting expression. You know, usually listening to a story is listening to someone telling you a narrative. Here the flames don't speak in the physical sense of the word, but yet they tell us a story. So when you look at a flame, as silent as it may be and as quiet and subtle as it may be, it really tells us important messages. So message number one is that your soul is like a flame. What does a flame do? A flame is the only physical entity that the naked eye can see that defies gravity. Everything else falls and the flame rises. And it's the wick that contains it and grounds it, which is essentially the nature, the transcendent nature of the soul, which is to transcend, to look upwards. They tell the story of one of the Hasidic Rebbes when he was a little child. He was playing on a ladder. He was climbing a ladder with other kids. And he climbed all the way to the top. All the other children were afraid to climb all the way. Later, his Zayda, his grandfather, who witnessed the whole game, playing, said to his little grandson, he said, so why were you the only one that had the courage to climb to the top of the ladder? So he said, Zayda, very simple. Zayda, grandpa. When all the children climbed, the other children, as they were climbing, they kept looking down. So they saw how high they were afraid to climb higher. When I was climbing, I kept looking up. So I saw how low I was, and it motivated me to go ever higher. That is what a flame is, and that's what a soul is. It looks up. You know, the body and our material needs, we look down. We look where we can find survival, where we can find our material needs met, food, drink, other needs that a human being has. But the soul, like a flame, looks up, and it's always rising, looking to a higher and broader horizons, and seeing and how it can climb to that place. And look at the human nature. We all are not satisfied with the status quo. No person is completely comfortable with animal bliss or with any type of the grind of the quotidian of daily life. We're always aspiring to look higher. You know, and looking higher means both physically, but more importantly, spiritually and emotionally. And that is the first lesson of the flame compared to your soul. The second thing is light like particles, like little photons or little packages of light, or is it like a wave? Think of waves of the ocean, where instead of coming in as parts, the whole thing just looks like waves. In Judaism, there's a whole discussion about Chanukah and the Chanukah lights that parallels that idea, whether light is made up of a whole bunch of details, or light is one flow. And at the end of the day, Chanukah tells us that it's both. Like every night we light one flame, and we count 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then every night we add. So clearly, it's not just one big field of energy. At the same time, when you see flames, they come together they join in a way that you see they're indistinguishable. They almost like kiss. You see two flames come close together, they suddenly melt into one, and you can't distinguish between the two. Which touches upon a very interesting question in life in general. Is life made up of details, or do we have some unifying common denominator that connects your life? Very often, many of us suffer from this fragmentation or compartmentalization, where our lives, like they'll say, is so hectic, made up of so many different details, and different forces, different voices, different expectations tugging at us. I mean, who doesn't have a struggle, for example, between their personal home life and the work? And then add everything else into the equation, sometimes we feel we're being torn apart by so many different demands. So on one hand, life is very detailed, and details that can actually even disturb our equilibrium. But on the other hand, life also has elements that are common denominators. For example, if you have love in your life, if you have a mission in life. So that mission, in a sense, unites all the different details in your life. And Chanukah touches us that as well, which is we have the details, but remember that they should all be parts of one large composite, of one large tapestry. You know, think of it like musical notes in a beautiful composition. Each note plays its song, each note, its tune. But at the same time, all the notes combine together into this beautiful music. And the same thing is with our lives. When you look at the Chanukah flames and you see each night has its own particular flame, but there's also a cohesiveness, a unity. So there you have light being both wave and particle. Particle as in details, wave as in a flow that connects many details all together. And finally, in Chanukah, you find the message of growth. Every night we add a flame. We add a flame. We add a flame means that it should never suffice with the good deeds you've done yesterday. Always grow in light, as well as the other messages of transcendence and restlessness and unity. And finally here, growth. Light ultimately pierces darkness in a very natural way. There's no battle like fire and water fight with each other. If there's enough water, it can extinguish great fires. Enough fire can evaporate great oceans. But when it comes to light and darkness, a little light dispels a lot of darkness without any effort. So when you see people with clarity, when you see people with focus, with light in their lives, you'll see it automatically melts away confusion and darkness. So when you look at the Chanukah candles, and you look at the flames, and you'll see there's many stories they tell us about our own lives. In a way, they mirror our souls and they mirror our lives. And by studying them and learning their lessons, we can literally be transformed in our own lives, because all of us have our little moments of darkness, we have our confusions, we have our challenges. And Chanukah comes to tell you that there's hope, not only hope, that you have all the tools you need, because your soul is an illuminating flame that can warm and radiate anywhere it goes. So may we all be blessed with that power, to have that type of clarity and the type of ability to illuminate our own lives and all those that we meet.
The Holy of Holies is a term in the Hebrew Bible which refers to the inner sanctuary of the tabernacle and then later the temple in Jerusalem. This is where the Ark of the Covenant was kept during the first temple, and which could be entered only by the high priest on Yom Kippur. The Ark of the Covenant is said to have contained the 10 Commandments, which were given by God to Moses on Mount Sinai. In our new series entitled The Temple and Today, Rabbi Liebenberg explains how elements of the temple are still found in synagogues today, starting with the parochet in front of the Aron Kodesh, or the curtain in front of the Holy Ark.
When the Jewish people were about to go to exile in Babylon, the prophet Yechezkel gave them some comforting words. And he said, even though you're going to be dispersed to all of the four corners of the globe, nevertheless, wherever you go, I will be for you a mikdash ma'at, a minor sanctuary. And the Talmud tells us that what he meant is, wherever Jewish people go, they will have a little sanctuary. They will not have the temple, they will have shuls, and they will have places of worship and places of study. Beit HaKnesset and Beit HaMidrash. Beit HaTfilah, a place to pray and a place to learn. And therefore, the shul is like the temple in miniature. And in fact, to this very day, all of our shuls are based and designed along the design of the temples that were in Jerusalem. Let's have a look at some of the components. The most holy place in the temple was the Kodesh HaKodashim, the Holy of Holies. This was in the most westward part of the temple. You would come through the Heichal, the covered area. This was a massive, massive hall. And then as you went westwards, you would suddenly encounter an enormous curtain. This curtain was called the Parochet, the dividing curtain. It was made out of the most beautiful materials. And it acted as a division between the Kodesh, the holy area, and the Holy of Holies. Behind the Parochet was the Holy of Holies. This was a simple chamber. And in this chamber, there was but one item, and that was the Aron HaKodesh, the Holy Ark. The Holy Ark had been made in the times of Moses. It was a rectangular wooden box covered in gold. Its lid was pure gold with two cherub shapes on the top. And inside the Aron HaKodesh were the tablets, the original broken tablets, the first set, the second tablets which remained intact, and one of the Torah scrolls written by Moshe himself. And therefore the most focal point of the temple was the Ark, and what was in the Ark, the Torah, to show that that is the constitution of the Jewish people. That is what makes us a nation. As Saadia Gaon said, Ein umatenu umma ela b'Torah. Our nation is only a nation by virtue of the Torah. And therefore in every single shul, when you go to the part of the shul that is meant to face Jerusalem, there you will have the Aron HaKodesh, the Holy Ark. Now, of course, it's not like the Holy Ark was in the times of the temple, but we still refer to it as such. And what is in the Holy Ark? Exactly the same thing that was in the Aron HaKodesh, in Jerusalem, in the temple, the Torah. That is where the Torah scroll is kept, because that is the central focus of every shul. The realization being that our religion comes to us through the Torah. And in front of the Aron HaKodesh, separating it from the rest of the shul, is a curtain. And we still refer to that curtain as the Parochet. That is its name. And every Parochet is designed in a very beautiful fashion. There's so many designs, there's so many colors, but it serves that purpose, that before you go into the Aron HaKodesh, you have to realize that there is a dividing line, and now you're going into a holy space.
Simcha, the celebration of life.
Today's excerpt from Pirkei Avot, or Ethics of Our Fathers, quotes Joshua, the son of Parachia, from chapter 1, Mishnah 6. Assume for yourself a master, acquire for yourself a friend, and judge every man favorably. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for this week's episode of Simcha. Thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like to be in touch with us, please find us on Facebook at Spirit Sister Productions and drop us a line. From myself, Eitan Berger, and the whole team here at Simcha, have a Chanukah Sameach and a great week.